You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Peter B. Gillis, and you're listening to the Epic Marvel Podcast.
Hello, this is the Epic Marvel Podcast. My name is Curtis Findley, and today we have an interview with Peter B. Gillis. Peter B. Gillis is a comic book writer. He's written for a number of different companies, but since this is a Marvel podcast, I'll highlight some of his Marvel work: Doctor Strange, Micronauts, Eternals, and this is primarily stuff through the 80s. And today in particular, we're going to be talking about What If. He did a number of the issues for the very first volume of What If in the late 70s, early 80s, and we're going to be going kind of one by one through every single issue that he wrote, trying to get a little bit of the behind the scenes as what it was to come up with these ideas. It is a fascinating conversation. Peter's a great guy to talk to, and you'll want to make sure that you check out his Facebook page and his website, which we talk about at the end of this episode, in order to see what he's up to today. And you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter and on YouTube if you look for Epic Marvel Podcast. And I also have an Epic Collection Facebook page if you are interested in Marvel's Epic Collection trade paperbacks. We discuss those all day, every day. So just search for Epic Collections on Facebook. And I think that's all from me. I'll hand it over to myself as I interview Peter B. Gillis. My first question for you, Peter, is had you been familiar with What If before you jumped on to your first issue, which was issue number 18?
Yes, I was definitely interested. I was reading all of them. You know, it was Roy Thomas's baby for a while, and it ranged from wonderful to Sergeant Fury and fighting
outer space. Yeah,
space.
Right.
And and the Avengers of the 1950s. These were, I know, kind of Roy's hobby horses at that point.
Yeah.
They were fun, but when Mark Gruenwald and Denny O'Neil took over the book, since I knew both of them, I was saying, hey, can I work on this? So.
Okay, so you asked them because of your interest in the title.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when you started writing these issues, did you have a certain idea of how you wanted to go? Like you mentioned a couple of those past issues that maybe weren't as good or didn't really even follow the whole what if mandate as particular, but did you have an idea in your mind how you wanted to do things?
Yeah, and it was pretty much, I will preface this by saying, Mark Gruenwald and I were really close friends before we were professionals, and okay. I worked on his magazine Omniverse, which dealt with alternate realities.
Okay.
So I can tell you that Mark was not surprised that I came and wanted to do stuff, but I wanted to be true to the idea of divergent points and all of that, and about the only thing that I came to, and I had talked to Mark about, especially doing Doctor Strange, my favorite character, and I did suggest the artist, Tom Sutton.
Okay.
Because I'd really always wanted to work with him. So the first one that I did, I pitched the idea, and he said, "Fine, write it up."
And this one is What if Doctor Strange had been a disciple of Dormammu?
Right. Actually, that and the next one were kind of had the same sort of basis, that both of these characters were not actually really nice guys to begin with, or necessarily superhero material, but they made the choice. And I went with Doctor Strange saying, what if he made the wrong choice? Mm-hmm. And remained the asshole surgeon that he had been when the choice was offered to him.
Right.
And with Peter Parker, it was, well, what if he made, to a certain extent, the right choice for the wrong reason? Let me stop the burglar. I mean, the guy lifting the till at the thing and said, I can make more money out of this. I can, the publicity would be great, and so forth, and he goes down that path. And the two are kind of similar, but very different in tone. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and what I noticed about the Doctor Strange story is that once you get to the end of the story, the Doctor Strange that we know and love from the mainstream reality ends up being present at the end. Like that comes through, but for Spider-Man, that doesn't quite happen.
Yeah. It would be a long path for him to get to be the person. I mean, he had, Doctor Strange was an evil magician, goes to the good. Leader Parker, potentially, he still has the spider powers, and he's now remorseful and has learned a lesson. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he would do it, that he would then devote his life to doing good. And I did think about this, and because there was the talk of maybe doing a sequel to it, and saying, but he's a movie producer. He's not going to go fight street crime.
Yeah.
He may become a nice movie star,
right?
Use his millions for good or something like that. But would he become the Spider-Man who? He ends up fighting all of his old foes, which that was kind of self-indulgent, but kind of obvious. Redoing Spider-Man Annual #1.
Yeah.
But he at least turns in the right direction. So they're ultimately good stories, but they go through an awful lot of each book is wait, this is our hero. No, he's not.
Right. Yeah. What I like about the way you approach your what if stories, and is especially evident, I think, in these first two issues, is that you have such a knowledge of the background of these characters and the chronology of how events still, like how they originally played out, and they still play out through these issues. Like the Spider-Man issue, you hit all of the kind of the main points in that first year of Lee and Ditko's Amazing Spider-Man. It still happens. And I like that, because then it gives us, like, we feel like insiders, like we know the secrets that are going on, but we still don't know where the story's going. So were you a big Marvel reader just in general at that time, or did you have to do a lot of research?
I was absolutely a Marvel zombie.
Yeah.
I had a vast collection.
Nice.
I had something of an encyclopedic knowledge of now what they call the Silver Age.
Yeah.
With Doctor Strange as well, when you had the circle of the good mystics, I kind of made sure tried to go and cover all the bases.
You sure did. Yeah, I was going to mention that too, because you pulled out some pretty obscure characters there.
And that was the fun, and that kind of reflects my omniverse background.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great.
So,
the next issue that you got to do after the Spider-Man issue was what if Jor-El had not died? And on the cover it says, what if Hulk had become a barbarian, which is kind of like a... trying to capitalize on the Conan popularity at the time, I think.
I think so. Well, I really enjoyed doing it. I had my revenge also there, because this was also, I really felt that the way Len Wein had killed off Jarella was stupid and gratuitous. And, we shouldn't kill off girlfriends, It was, I understood the necessity, because it would have changed the book completely. But I said, let's do, I want to do that. But the cover, John Buscema strikes again.
No kidding. So good.
And that's what everybody remembers, that cover. And that turned into Marvel continuity.
Right.
Scar.
Yeah.
Everybody loved that cover so much. And I had a wonderful time working with Herb Trimpe, who I always felt was the Hulk artist. A lot of things Sal Buscema is, and he did a wonderful job. But Herb, to me, being the reader that I was at that point, was the Hulk artist.
Yeah.
So
it was really nice just to see, like you said, to see Jarella and Hulk have a life together more than just beyond a few issues that we had known before. Did you get pushback at all for any of your stories from editorial, or like did they say, that's not really a story we want to tell?
Pretty much no. I was very eager, and I might, I was interested in doing more, but Mark, said, well, look, we're jumping along here, but I want to give some other people a chance. Come on.
Right.
I go, okay, no problem, and I really came back to it when Ralph Macchio took over the editorship. So
right.
I didn't quite leave because I did like the book. Mark did give me some of the Tales of the Marvel Universe, a couple of episodes that in the back.
Right.
Well, which was another complete fanboy thing, because having read Thor, and when Tales of Asgard stopped, they put in
the Inhumans. Yeah.
Jack's favorite concepts, the Inhumans. And they said, the search for the Great Refuge, coming soon. And that was the last episode, and they went to book-length stories. And I said, God damn it, Marvel promised them this story. And Ron and I are going to give it to him.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you got to finish that. That's great. Did you have any notes from the Lee Kirby era to go, or was this a completely new direction that like you came up with this story here?
We came up with a story. I thought about it, and it became kind of problematic of just moving to another location, but could have been possible. But Doug Vench in his Inhumans had these tunnels and burrows underneath the Great Refuge that had been there, and if the Great Refuge was only 20 years old, being, or 30 years old, where would they come from?
Right.
So I said, no, they moved the whole island. And which sounded like something that Stan and Jack would be good with.
Oh, for sure.
And we included the Eternals, who at that point were not even the twinkle in Jack's eye. So, but we did that. And Ron, while definitely doing a Kirby-esque thing, and Joe Sinnott didn't hurt.
Yeah, of course.
Really didn't swipe much of anything except like the picture of Adeline. So I was, he was jazzed to work, and I loved working with Ron.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And that, and beyond that, actually, I did another one, but that also they stopped doing backups, and it ended up in a Thor annual. Me and Rich Howell doing like the Inhumans and the origin of the island in the sky, which was kind of a logical step, saying that they'd done this before, and that the island in the sky was populated by Inhumans, and that was also the origin of the Red Raven, one of Marvel's first Golden Age characters.
Yeah,
so that was all. When Ralph took over, Ralph and I had a very good relationship, and that's when I just started throwing him idea after idea after idea, and he kept buying all of them.
So let's step back a little bit here. We'll get to the Macchio issues in a second, but you have one more story that you did under Grunwald, and that was Thor battled Odin over Jane Foster.
Yes.
An epic tale.
Yeah.
You said you were a Thor fan just a second ago, and I can see through this one and the other Thor issue that you do that you really do love the mythology and the epic nature of the storytelling. They're pretty wild.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing, and that was, there was a sort of a duality between the Hulk and the Thor one, is I was undergoing another development in which women were treated badly.
Right.
And that was, Jane Foster becomes an immortal. And, it's sort of like, hi there, you have immortality. Now fight this horrible monster. What? I don't want to. Oh, well, that's just, you're not, and it's like, and anybody would go, I mean, once again, we knew that they were writing the character out, but it's sort of like, that's so unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
She's had her power, she has the power of flight. Oh, good. That helps against the big monster. It helps her to run away, but, and she's had the power for about an hour. And okay, now you have to fight the unknown, the creepy thing that Asgardians run away from.
Right.
And as a fan, I read that and I go, what?
Yeah, just set up to fail.
So I said, here's the what if story, as if, if Thor acted the way he should have, and said, what are you doing?
Right.
Oh, you're trying to get rid of her, and I won't stand for it.
Wow.
And so I was really happy to work with Rich Buckler on it. And I did suggest another friend of mine, Dave Simons, who was not getting all that much work, which was insane because he was so good. And together they did an unbelievable job. So.
They sure did. Yeah. The artwork is just fantastic in these issues. I'd never heard of Dave Simons before, but he definitely has a great grasp on his style, his inking. Very moody.
Yeah, I was just a freelancer, but when I met somebody I liked, because sometimes it's, as I knew well, it's difficult to break through a barrier.
Yeah.
Not to say that it wouldn't have happened anyway, but Mark Silvestri, who is a fellow Chicagoan, everybody knows how good he is now.
Yeah.
Long run on the X-Men and Image and everything, but he was stuck doing Conan the King, which was they're sort of like you're and we knew that you don't necessarily get out of the Conan the Barbarian ghetto,
Oh yeah.
heroes, because they're going, what he's doing. So, and one of the things I did, now this is going a little far afield from your idea, but
that's okay.
I was doing Warp for First Comics, and we were doing Warp specials in between the adaptation of the plays. And the first one was with Howard Chaykin, and that's another big story. But
yeah.
The second one, we had Mark Silvestri do it. And I actually sort of harassed Jim Shooter. He was at a convention in Chicago, and I went up to him and go, use this guy. He's so good,
Yeah, nice.
So I can't take credit for it, but that's what I intended to do. If I say, look, this guy is not being used, and especially, for What If, it's a nice, big, long story, and and Dave certainly had the chance to show his chops there. So, it turned out really nicely.
It sure did. And I'm glad that you had a good relationship with your editors as well. That they would listen to your recommendations also. So that's good.
Yeah. People have asked me, with the Macchio stuff, did you become the regular writer on What If? Were you assigned that? And I go, no, not in the least. I just, Ralph and I used to hang out together, and it's like I was full of ideas, and he goes, that's great, let's do it.
So it was just kind of a coincidence that you did those last 7 or 8 issues in a row?
Yeah, well, a semi-coincidence in that other people were coming up with ideas, and Ralph goes, that stinks, go away.
Okay.
Ralph was like that, and mine didn't stink. So anyway, that's really all there was to it. So,
well, that's good. Your first story for Ralph was Doctor Strange. What if Doctor Strange had never become the Master of Mystic Arts? Baron Mordo does instead. What a great story here as well. And amazing stuff from Butch Guice also.
Which was really one of his first jobs at Marvel.
Wow. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. He sure came through the gate kicking, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, he did it, and one of the funny things about it is that the pages were coming into Ralph's office, and everybody in the office were going and looking at, holy crap, this is incredible. Good. Who is this guy? And halfway through the book, you see a background poster saying, for sale, Avengers Annual, Mantlo and Geis. In the middle of the book, he started to catch fire at Marvel. So,
nice.
I never worked with him again because he just got way too popular.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I have to say that Michael Golden cover summed up everything I wanted to do with the book, and I know it just got people buying the book.
Yeah,
with Mordo in Doctor Strange's garb.
So great. Well, and all the red is so striking on there. Brilliant cover. The story itself is quite fun as well because you get to see, it's kind of like your other one where Doctor Strange remained the same surgeon as he was before, but I love the way you interweave his regular life with kind of the mystic stuff that's going on. He just can't help but be in those circles.
Yeah, and I also got to do, and here's another secret behind the comics. When I got the regular book and I got it handed over to me from Roger Stern, Roger is also, also a friend. And, one of the things that we said, but we never established in the book, is that Doctor Strange is about 90 years old. And, and one of the reasons he feels detached from the other characters is that gap. Right. And also establishing that the training that the Ancient One gives Doctor Strange lasts about 25 years. Now, we never established that, we just sort of agreed on it, and we said, this helps give a sense to the character, and also doesn't do the thing that, hi there, wham, you're a master of the mystic arts.
Right. Yeah.
Takes a panel, and in the movie, he kind of becomes it very, very quickly.
It is very fast, yeah.
But the one thing that I was able to do is have Doctor Strange, no longer master of the mystic arts, as a professor teaching the young Don Blake.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So, so I'd say, Strange and Blake were not, compatriots. They, Strange is of a previous generation, but not Blake.
Yeah.
So I managed to do that. And again, saying this is who, so it did work. It did work out pretty well.
Yeah.
So.
Now, there's a lot of stuff in the artwork that Butch does with all of the mystic energy, the symbols and the lines that are coming out of the blue and the pink. Did you give any instruction to Butch at all about the visuals, or did you leave that completely up to him?
I left that up to him. I did. This is what happens. They have a mystical battle,
and then he does that all. Wow, it's just striking. I love it.
Right. Well, what happened is Michael Golden, when he did the Micronauts, color holds, which is what what those are, were not done at Marvel because it cost extra money at the printer.
Right.
But Golden says, who is very expert in all those printing techniques, said, okay, it costs more money. How much? And the answer came back, $3 a page.
Wow.
And Michael said, Jesus Christ, I'll pay that $3 if I can use the color hold. So as it turned out, people go, we can use color holds, but they were being held back by a tradition that Michael sort of blew through, and Butch, took full advantage of that.
He sure did. Yeah, that's great. It makes just such a difference looking at it, because it's like it looks special. It looks like some more effort has been put into this book than normal.
Right. It was special, and it was different than Ditko.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been happier with that one.
So the next issue in here is one of my favorite what if issues in the whole run. What if the Invisible Girl had died? Mm-hmm. What an incredible one this one is. I love especially the funeral scene. It just, when I was reading this, it's like it just blew my mind. Like you're writing, you have the characters down so well, and I just love it. Yeah, I don't know what to say otherwise.
I regard that as one of the best single issues of anything I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
Ron Friends, who I worked with again, we did, it worked so well. He was as much steeped in the mythology as I was.
Yeah.
And he was also sensitive to, exactly what was going on. And then we got Joseph, so.
Just the icing on the cake there.
Right. Both of us said, and we'd both been working quite a while at Marvel. We finally done a Marvel comic. And it was, again, for like the third time, and it wasn't that, but it was my feeling on the Fantastic Four as a family, which everybody knows that, but I was making that point really kind of early on. And that Sue was the center of gravity of the family, and she was what Fantastic Four together, especially, and a little digression here. I hope you won't mind.
Of course.
But the thing that I loved about the Fantastic Four, and specifically what Stan was doing on the Fantastic Four, was at the outset of the Fantastic Four, it was very brittle. Reed was more standoffish, and the thing was, went into rages all the time, and Johnny Storm was kind of an asshole. And slowly, that all settled down, I mean, the Thing still hated what his life was, but the torch matured and then calmed down, and Reed got humanized, and all of that, my thesis was, all of that was due to Sue.
Yeah.
And breaking that center was a powerful thing. I wanted it, and I've always wanted to treat death with respect, but it also showed that, it nearly broke every one of the Fantastic Four, and it did break Reed.
Yeah, it's so great. The progression, it's so extreme, but yet feels so natural. Like, yes, of course, this is how Reed would react to something like this.
And the response was kind of overwhelming.
Oh, good.
And in a good way. So,
yeah.
it was kind of like, wait. And somebody put, and it wasn't the only one, but somebody put in a letter going, how is it that these two guys wrote the best Fantastic Four story in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
And I go, well, but it was, so it was definitely heartfelt. And it was great that when I said Willie Lumpkin attends the funeral, Ron, just drew him.
Yep.
And the fact that I decided, to have the Submariner shows up, does not show up at the funeral in his Speedos.
Yes.
But uses the kind of infamous costume as a costume of mourning in state, which
it fits so well.
But strips down to his Speedos immediately afterwards.
That's right. The very next page. This funeral scene, I want to go back to this because it's definitely stands out to me as the highlight of this issue, just because of the emotional weight to it. I love the way that Ron has set up the 9-panel grids with the middle column with like the reactions of the crowd or the people who are attending and such. Is that a Ron decision, or did you suggest this as well?
I wrote in the plot, and I tend to write big plots, but I wrote the entire ceremony out, but left the layout to Ron.
Okay, wow, it worked so well.
All of the dialogue came first.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's unusual for Marvel.
So
at least.
Well, I realized that this had to be good, and the fact that we used upper and lowercase lettering, that wasn't my decision either. That was Ralph's. But it wasn't just sort of like I didn't write, well, the Thing makes a speech, and the Torch makes a speech, and Reed makes a speech, and Reed's speech was weird, and no. It's all that was all written out because it had to. I had to let Ron know exactly what was going on.
No, that's perfect, because then he knows the pacing of all of it. Like, he can appropriately map out the layout. It's just so great. And I mentioned this before, like you have such a good handle on the voice of these characters. So their individual speeches are so true to who they are. They don't feel out of place at all. It's really great. Let's move on to the next issue. What if Conan the Barbarian were stranded in the 20th century? Another fantastic issue that I absolutely loved. And of course, I love the first one as well that Roy did. And this one, building on top of that, is just what a wild ride it is. And I remember after reading in the letter pages after the first story was printed that it's something along the lines of, if there ever is a sequel, it will be against Roy's highest protests or something like that. So I wanted to know, what did Roy and Dan think about you revisiting this story?
They were polite. I know they didn't particularly like it.
Okay.
But I did want to make a point with it that the thing that I didn't quite like was Conan as completely bamboozled by the 20th century.
Okay.
And, as I laid out to Ralph, Conan probably knows 11 languages. He's been in, all sorts of different cities, all sorts of different cultures, from the Hyborian. He's dealt, and he's extremely smart. He's led armies and that sort of thing. And naturally, in 24 hours, he would be startled by it. But if he was stuck there very quickly, he would figure out how to do it. And he would do what he usually does, become a thief or a mercenary or a gang leader.
Right.
And that, to me, was really the Robert E. Howard Conan. That makes it different from the bewildered savage. Tarzan's New York Adventure, it was, that I felt that's not Conan. Conan is, not given a chance in the comics to be that smart. Although, when you adapt the Howard comics, he's very smart. The Howard stories, he's very smart.
Right.
And he's also not ethical. And I wanted to, bring that out. He's noble in a way, and Captain America pegs him pretty well. And the Conan versus Captain America, sword versus shield was irresistible.
Yeah.
But so was, Conan showing up at, Dan's doorstep, dressed out like a pimp with a leopard on his leash and all of that, because that's where he's going to gravitate to.
Yeah.
So it was, in fact, kind of a criticism of Roy's, but, I didn't say your story stunk. And of course he had 24 hours and that worked out fine. I can't really fault the story except that, if he had been there longer, this is Conan as I saw him. So.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It doesn't diminish the previous story at all. It just expands on the concept. Yeah. I think it was a lot of fun. And just this fight at the end with Cap and Conan is like, no, I don't think this is the only time you'd ever be able to get away with that. So it's like, might as well do it, right?
Right. Well, it is my only Conan story for Marvel. So
yeah.
But it made me happy for that to have been. I'm not sure I would have done Conan,
Like
properly.
Regular, yeah.
But I would have given it my shot. But that was not being offered to me anyway. So,
right.
And by the way, I just got one of the Marvel reprints of What If. The What If Complete, I think.
Yep.
That finally reprints that story.
Yeah, that's what I've been reading through.
Marvel franchise in previous treasuries and that sort of thing doesn't appear until Marvel got Conan back. Disney Marvel got Conan back, and now it's in there. So the latest issue is the first reprinting of that story in probably 30 years.
Fantastic. So. And it's great that it's accessible now for people to enjoy. That's great. Okay, the next one here is another one of my favorite issues in What If. What if Captain America were revived today? What a mind-blowing story this is. I just absolutely love it. And reading it, in the era that we have been in for the last few years, it's just, it rings true. It's just a fantastic story.
Right. That last speech is getting reprinted all, on Facebook, etc., being all over the place.
Yeah, I've seen it pop up a bunch of times. People are tagging you in it all the time.
I wish it weren't as relevant as it is today, but it worked out really wonderfully. The one thing, of course, that I realized, that as the way it turned out, because it, showed up in 1984. And if we had, because this was not really put on the schedule and we did not know exactly when it was going to come out, we could have called it What If Captain America Had Not Been Revived Until 1984.
Ah, right.
And that would have been, a very cool title. But as it was, it worked out the way I hoped. My old friend Dave Simons on Inks.
Oh yeah.
And I'd worked with Sal on a number of things, and he did not fail me at all.
Yeah, I love that last. I love how at the very end you just end on the flag. Like there's no the end or there's no coming next time little box at the bottom, or it's such a perfect, captivating ending. It's like let's just end on that.
Yeah. Well, similarly, because you usually have the Watcher show up, and
right. Oh yeah, that's right. He doesn't show up at the end here to close things off.
He does in the Invisible Girl story. We were just pounding ahead on it, and then we realized that no, we don't have any space for the Watcher to come and show. So he just shows up in the background on the last last page, and nobody replied. So, it was, and why did the Watcher? It wasn't artistic, except in the fact that we ran out of space.
Okay. No, it worked to its benefit, I think. Like you don't need to go back to that theme. It was a great ending.
Yep.
What if Hulk went berserk? Here's another fun issue that is kind of just a huge smash fest all the way through. And it's just like, it's kind of a nice break after, because when you read these complete collections, and you have all the issues all in a row, and you're just kind of plowing through them. You have like the really heavy issues, and then you get this one, which is a nice change of pace. I like that.
It started out as me going, I really want to work with Ron Wilson.
Okay, good.
I want to work with Ron Wilson.
Yeah.
And we should do a Hulk story, and Ron was going, oh God, let's do a Hulk story. And that wasn't immediate. And then I said, okay, here's a really savage premise, knowing the early history of the Hulk, because Rick and the Hulk were connected telepathically, and that was the thing that was holding the Hulk back and keeping him from going completely berserk. And what happens if Rick died? And it's a very dark story in its alternative end.
That's true. Yeah, the implications.
Oh, right, and because it's like this is not a Hulk who is half human. This is a Hulk just completely out of control. Kills Iron Man.
Yeah.
Then Thor has to kill him. That premise in and of itself might have been too dark to do a good what if there, but the fact is that then Ron and I went to town, and it's like, yeah, a Hulk throwing ICBMs at people.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, yeah, that's what that's what I'm talking about. So.
Just fantastic. Yeah, Ron Wilson really brought it home for this. It just and that the snap at the end, so brutal, and it's just what a great ending there.
Yeah.
And then the next issue here, Spider-Man. What if Spider-Man's Uncle Ben had lived? First of all, you get to work with Ron Frenz again, and this is another instance of kind of revisiting almost the same story as the other Spider-Man issue you did. Uncle Ben doesn't die both times, but they go in so completely different directions.
Yeah. Right. Again, I went to Ralph with this, saying, you're going to think this is the stupidest, most pointless what if ever, idea whatever, if I tell you that it's what if the burglar had shot Aunt May instead of Uncle Ben. He goes, well, yeah, right. Yeah, but one of the things that I thought that I noticed about the Lee Ditko Spider-Man especially was that Spider-Man was a strip without a father, without a powerful male influence.
Right.
And actually, to be kind of literary about it, J. Jonah Jameson is the father in Spider-Man, in the early Spider-Man story.
Okay.
He is bad father, but he supplies the money that they can live. Parker is trying to get his approval and trying to get his validation from Jameson, who won't give it, and in fact, is sabotaging, Parker's self-image throughout the whole. And it was less of what if one foster parent had died rather than the other, but what if Spider-Man had a father, a positive authority figure. Now, I had to make up Uncle Ben's, personality from whole cloth. He didn't have any.
Right,
in canon, but saying while he was perpetually able to fool Aunt May, with a canny, smart Uncle Ben, and my justification for this is his brother was a CIA agent, so he can't be that. He can't be just an idiot,
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, no, he finds the costume right away, and the story progresses from there. So that was, it's the virtue of that story is that he has guidance and he has support and becomes a different character. But also, it's not all peaches and cream for him, because of course, both Ben and Jonah says, Betty Brant, her brother is, and going, I won't believe it, and they were right.
Yeah.
So, and working with Ron again was just wonderful. And also, it was a what if that ended nicely.
Yeah, that didn't happen very often. So it's nice to get that change of pace as well.
And that was fun. It also ultimately it enabled me to get to do another story, sort of getting into Peter Parker's personality, his self, who I thought, who I think he. So, and the one thing I'm just particularly proud of in that issue is that one page, which is again like Ron doing a 9-panel grid of J. Jonah stewing over the predicament that Ben Parker has put and Peter have put him in.
Yes.
And I'm going, that's J. Jonah Jameson. I got to do it, almost a quintessential J. Jonah Jameson page.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked really well. And again, just like with the Fantastic Four, like you know these characters so well that you've got all of their voices down so perfectly, and their motivations, even if they aren't what you would expect them to be in the regular mainstream. Like they're still consistent with who they are. Even Uncle Ben.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I wanted to make it credible. I didn't want to make him, do something like make him a spy or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Though it is odd enough that Ben, who is obviously the older brother of Richard Parker, is just this guy, and his younger brother worked for the CIA, got wrapped up in the Red Skull, and all this.
Yeah, it makes you think maybe James Bond's younger or older brother is just an accountant or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, in Star Wars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my brother is a Jedi and a Sith Lord and ruler of the Empire, and me, I just decided to go into farming.
Yeah, right. Just a lowly moisture farmer.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, okay, that makes sense. No, actually, it doesn't. Anyway. But if George could get away with it, I was going to say no. He's just not. He's not senile, and he's not an idiot, and he loves his son. So his nephew. So.
The last issue of the first What If series here is Loki. What if Loki had found Thor's hammer?
Yeah.
Another just epic story. I love this concept. Like you explore the afterlife of Asgard, which they do in the comics as well, but not I think to the same extent that you did in this issue here.
Yeah. Well, they got close in some of my favorite Lee Kirby stuff.
Yep.
To me, when Thor just became the absolute best was the Mangog story.
Yeah.
And what was leading up to it. And, you had Thor 150 with, Thor's spirit coming out of his body. And so I just went with that. And, it was fun. In retrospect, and Kelly Jones is kind of not known for being being Kirby-esque.
Right.
Especially not these days. But we had been working together on the Micronauts under Ralph, same editor, and Kelly, Kelly was fast and enthusiastic, and definitely had a good time with that, and less of a different Thor, and if there was a little bit of revenge, it was sort of like, okay, well, Don Blake happens to be vacationing in Norway.
Yeah.
Right where the hammer is now. You can make a case for that, but the fact that the stone men from Saturn just happened to
show up there too. Yep.
But that's comic books.
It is. Yeah. Did you know at the time that was going to be the last issue of What If?
Oh no.
It was canceled after that?
It was canceled after that. If you read the letters page in issue 47, and in previous treasuries they did, Ralph was saying, the Nameless Faces editorial box at the end of the letters page, that there were all sorts of new things that were going to be done. There was going to be a Silver Surfer What If, and there was a complete Iron Man What If already in the can.
Oh, okay. And that's what became the special?
That's what became the special. And, they had to publish it because,
it was done.
It was done, and, it was Steve Ditko, which was the thrill of a lifetime to work with Steve.
I'm sure.
And so forth. And it sold so well that they had to revive it. But by then, I was on my way out the door from Marvel and comics.
Yeah.
Which is a long story, but it was like there were lots of unpleasantnesses working for Marvel as well as wonderful things. And the wonderful things happened to be the creative work of actually doing the books.
Right.
The other stuff, not so much. And there was something that I was actually paid for. I had done the plots, and it's announced in the letters page.
The two-part X-Men story.
Two-part X-Men story. Me and Jerry Ordway.
So tell me more about that. Yeah.
It was, and oh God, I wish, if I could change reality, it would be to, adjust that one so that I got to do it because, Jerry wanted to work at Marvel, and this was one of the things that he was looking forward to doing, and then everything sort of went sour for him, and he was back at, he was at DC.
Yeah.
Half of for forever, But no, it was basically a what if Magneto had formed the X-Men.
Okay. And it never made it past the plot stage?
Never made it past the plot stage, but it was it was accepted, and I got paid for it.
Oh, okay.
Both.
So you think Marvel has that in their file somewhere still?
They might. I actually don't. So,
oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, but that would have been so good.
Yeah, and a two-part story too. Like that hadn't been done yet for What If.
Yeah, right. And two-part, double-sized each time.
Wow.
Since I had broken it down, it had all sorts of epic potential in it. So, but I can't detail you the details because I've known most of them.
Yeah. Well, let's. I would love to see them revive that and pull it out of their big filing cabinet and give you another go. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, after I left the business for a couple of years, I just did not read comics at all. I was involved in desktop publishing, digital printing, which came out of my work with computers, and I threw myself into that. So I didn't really read any of the what ifs of the next series or much of anything out of Marvel for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But I knew they made the decision not to redo Origins, which I thought was a mistake, except that I could understand their idea of, okay, how are we going to redo the origin now?
Oh, yeah, because that made up a bulk of the original stories was origin retelling.
Yeah, and to have significant events that were strong enough beyond the origin doesn't always work.
Right.
What if the Avengers were pawns of Korvac was one I remember,
Yeah.
And, that was made, and you could do a what if the Secret Wars came out differently, and the death of Phoenix, of course. But beyond that, what if you say, what if Atlantis attacks had turned out differently? And they go, no, but, cue in the Family Guy. Nobody cares.
Yeah, right. The few people who actually managed to buy all of those annuals would maybe be interested.
You don't know how it turned out actually. And okay, here I'm getting, but and the idea with What If for me was, to do sort of the elevator pitch version, it's let's do the best goddamn, Doctor Strange story, Spider-Man story, Hulk story ever.
Right.
And just by saying not constrained by, we can't do that because the Avengers are doing this,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And so forth, and we just say no, Thor and Odin bust up, they die, etc. And so so you could take it to that breaking point, and who are these characters if not their origins? And I'll point out that with a Stan and Jack or Stan and Steve origin, it gives them their emotional life and their character, the way that Green Lantern meeting Abin Sur does not.
Right.
Superman's kind of does, and Batman's kind of does, but Aquaman,
You're right.
Green Arrow, even Wonder Woman, it's sort of like, Wonder Woman, no, she just sort of decides to show up, but how these characters become, and very often involves, a character change or, a new depth. And a lot of people like Denny O'Neil over at DC, really started to introduce that, but, redoing, and of course, with the imaginary stories, actually some of the more interesting Superman stories were done that way, but not getting into who Superman is, if he showed up at that time. So I wanted to get at who these characters were. And it was great because I got to do it outside of continuity, and nobody was paying attention to, nobody was saying, you can't do that.
Right.
I know that both Mark and Ralph would have if I didn't, have like the sheaf of, you see, on page 12 of issue 36 of Tales to Astonish, so.
So were there any stories that you would have liked to do, other than the X-Men one, that you would have liked to do that you never got a chance to? Or can you also tell me any of the ones that got rejected?
I can say that I didn't get any rejected.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
I did self-censor. I came up with one a bit after I left, because I didn't quite stop thinking about it, of yet another Spider-Man story of, and this would have been a whole lot of fun. What if nobody got bit by the radioactive spider?
Okay.
What if Peter went to the demonstration and
Yeah.
did this, and the spider scuttled away, and somebody stepped on it.
Right. And as the world was deprived of Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah.
And my thing was calling it Spider-Man Zero, and this one I can still remember because it never got done. But it was like, well, what would happen is the burglar would still come to the Parker house, but it was Peter who would go down and surprise the burglar, and Peter would get shot.
Oh.
But not fatally enough to but enough to put him in the ICU
Oh, okay.
for 6 months and make him unable to walk without a walker for most of his life.
Wow. So then do you
but
focus on Uncle Ben then in that
Oh,
instance?
no, what actually happens is Parker concentrates on his studies, graduates with honors, and starts going to work for Tony Stark.
Ah, very cool.
And Stark wants to bring him into the company at a high level because Parker is really brilliant, and discovers that he can't because Peter Parker does not pass doesn't get a security clearance because of his parents.
Oh, okay.
Who were condemned as traitors, in their dealings with the Red Skull.
Right. Oh.
I won't go any further.
No, that's okay. Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be very compelling.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you the one teaser just to
Okay.
to shake.
Cool.
That Parker actually becomes the Green Goblin.
Oh, nice.
So
Wow.
anyway, I'll leave the details on you, but that's one that if I ever went back to Marvel, that's what I'd do.
Cool. That would be awesome. Well, and that's the nice thing about What If is that if you ever had the chance to do this again, you don't need to have read all of the most recent stuff. Like What If can happen from any point. So let's throw that on the table and let it go.
Right. And look, my prejudice, having been away from the business, for a very long, for Marvel for a very long time, is that I can say, no, let's start from the origin.
Right.
And I'm not, hopelessly dated because the origin of all of the characters still survive. Nobody's forgotten them.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And they've done all sorts of variations on it, and even there it might be fun, but it's kind of like I could still do the Fantastic Four, the rocket into space, or the radioactive spider, or the gamma bomb, or whatever.
Yeah.
So not only are not forgotten, but everybody that people still know them. So it wouldn't be inaccessible. Although necessarily, if I start using the terrible Tinkerer, they might go, "What? Oh, come on!" So
until he's a movie character, and then you could use him, and then everyone will applaud you for it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. I do want to say I don't know if there are any projects you are working on right now, but if you want to promote anything, you're more than welcome to.
I will pump one thing.
Sure.
Okay. At the beginning of the lockdown of the pandemic, starting about March, when I decided to write a science fiction serial, one episode a day.
On Facebook, right?
It's called Humans, and it's science fiction adventure, and it was definitely designed to be fun.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything ironic or depressing or about the pandemic. And I ended up, I thought it was going to be, 30, 40 chapters, and then, the quarantine will be over.
Yeah, right.
Well, it ended up to be 191 daily chapters.
Oh, man. Wow.
But it's a lot of fun, and it's all available for free on a website that I have. Okay. Yes, I have more than one website, but this is the one I'm going to tell you about. And it's called counterfactual.news. Counterfactual.news. Yes.
Okay.
And Humans is there in all its glory. 188 chapters plus a prologue and an epilogue.
Nice. I've read a couple of your chapters on Facebook, but you were already in the hundreds by that point, and so I was like, I got to like I didn't want to scroll back to the very beginning. That's a long way.
Yeah.
So now that I know that there's a website, yeah, that's great. We can all go back to the beginning and enjoy it together.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And one of the things about doing it straight prose is I don't have any artists to slow me down.
Yeah.
You know, and well, I did, okay, here I am going on. But
That's okay.
I did a previous serial called The Romance of the Rose, and that was a weekly serial, and it was going to be 50 episodes. It is 50 episodes, but because it was weekly, I got my old friend Mark Badger to do an illustration for each episode.
Oh, okay.
And then my publisher / host went into bankruptcy, so it's on issue 30. And Mark, who is, to my mind, one of the most creative and original guys, working in comics. And we worked on Doctor Strange for a brief period. He was able to keep up with me on a weekly thing.
Great.
The daily episode?
No, yeah, right.
No, but it not
practical.
Jack Kirby and John Buscema would have just, kicked me. But it allowed me to just go, and I'm hoping that at some point, that I will be doing a Kickstarter to make it into a book, but it'll be a pretty big book,
Yeah.
If you're into comics, you really should like this. That's my big plug.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I hope the listeners out there will check that out because the little bits that I've read have been a blast, and it was all out of context, so I need to go and read the rest of it. Thank you for sharing these stories with us about your time on What If, and I would love to pick your brain in the future about things like Doctor Strange and Micronauts and Eternals, especially with the movie coming up. So we'll have to schedule another time to chat.
Sure, so that's fine. It was fun talking at you.